Hello, Year 10. Right, basically, we're going to go through today evaluating a live theatre performance, and that's going to be things that I know to be true. Our learning objectives are, we're going to be able to identify appropriate references for a specific exam question. I'm going to show you that question in a moment, but we're going to look at a very key section of things that I know to be true, so look out for that as we go through. We're going to be able to identify key moments within that section, so I'm going to give you a section which is about 8 minutes or so, and then you need to kind of find 3 moments that you can pull from that section. And then finally, we're going to be able to apply knowledge of an exam question and of a section of live theatre to an exam question. I'm going to plan for that exam question today, and then I'm going to ask you to write that exam question in your next drama lesson. So yeah, that is what we're going to be looking at today. Before we start, the resources that you are going to need for today's session, you're going to need your drama exercise book for note taking. You're going to need to make sure that Digital Theatre Plus is open with things I know to be true loaded, and also I have sent you a copy of the circle map that I would like you to use to take your notes today. Please make sure that you have this to hand, just so that when we're going through you can have a look at it and you can make reference to it. So in order for us to do that, pause your video now, make sure that you've got all those resources ready, and come back when you have. Okay, welcome back. Lovely stuff. Okay, so today we're going to focus on evaluating the use of vocal and physical skills in a live theatre performance. In the blue box on the screen, you can see the exam question that we are looking at today. Now, this exam question is Section C, Evaluation of Live Theatre, in your Component 1 exam. It's worth 32 marks, so it's the highest of all the marks in the exam, and this is the question. So you are going to be asked to describe how one or more actors use their vocal and physical skills to interpret their role within the production. You're then going to analyse and evaluate how successful they were in communicating this role to the audience. And then it's got a list of things that you might want to make reference to. So it says that you can look at vocal skills, and then it's giving you a couple of examples of those. Physical skills, again, with some examples. And what it asks you in the final bullet point to do is that it says you can look at a scene or a section or the production as a whole. Now, today we're just going to look at a scene, and I'll talk a little bit more about what that scene's going to be in a few moments, but we're just looking at one scene for now, and then we'll see about maybe looking at 2 or 3 different sections as we progress through. This is the first time that we're doing this, so we don't want to overdo ourselves on the first go. So, the first task that I'd like you to do in our lesson today is this. I'd like you to identify all the elements that you might reference when evaluating a performance. Now, we always, at the beginning of our lessons for the exam, I always ask you to create a map of all the things that you know that you should include within that question. And this really goes beyond, this really is no different to that. So take a look at the question. I want you then to map out all of the different things. I want you to identify all of the different key things that you might reference in response to the blue box question that you see on the screen. So what I'm going to ask you to do is this. I want you to pause the video now. I want you to come up with as many things as you can. So vocal and physical skills, yes, write them all down in the box, but also what else might you be expected to do? How am I going to structure that question? The key reference points that build that question. So pause the video now and then come back when you have got all of those things written down. Okay, wonderful. So now, welcome back. You have got, in the purple in my map, you can see that I've got my physical skills and my vocal skills. Yes, we need to have a really good understanding of what they are. A mark in the exam criteria is always bringing you back to theatrical terminology. So when we are describing, and there's, as if you are looking carefully, a clear description of how skills were used, that is detailed and precise. That is one of the references that I would like you to make sure that you are including in your exam answer. But if you look really carefully, as I say, you need to be able to describe those theatrical skills in real detail. You need to be using specific vocal terminology. You need to be referencing a wide range of vocal and physical skills. So make sure that instead of just saying, 1 or 2, if we are focusing on a particular section, you need to be saying that they were using pitch, they were using tone, they were using this type of body language on just one kind of minute key moment. You need to evaluate how successful the actor was in demonstrating their feelings, their circumstances, your interpretation, how well they did that to the audience. Describe where and how the character's emotions may be developed or changed as the scene went on. You could you need to identify and interpret the motivation of the character in the scene. How do they feel? What is going on? What do they want to achieve in the scene? What are their circumstances? So again, almost like in the performance question in Blood Brothers, you need to be able to interpret how that character feels, what is going on in that character's mind. And then finally, you just need to analyse how the use of vocal and physical skills demonstrate that character's motivation, demonstrates your interpretation of that character, how it looks at it in clear detail. So, what I would like you to do is this. I want you to go and have a look on your digital theatre production at Pip's monologue. You want to start at 45 minutes and 18 seconds and you want to end at 51 minutes and 53 seconds. Now, all I want you to do is I want you to watch the monologue. I want you to note down the following things, just an overview of what was going on in the scene in general, and that's probably only going to be a sentence or so that just kind of summarises it. And then I'm looking for 3 specific moments of significance. So almost like if I give you an example, so Pip has moved to Vancouver, she's moved there to move in with her new boyfriend, and she has left her husband and kids behind. That might be an overview of the scene, but then we're looking at it even more specifically. So at this specific moment, she demonstrates this emotion, or she looks at this reaction, or my interpretation of her would be this. So an overview to begin with, and then just 3 really specific moments. What are her feelings on those moments? Just really have those pinpointed because they're going to come in really useful later. So again, pause the video now, come back to it please when you have watched Pip's monologue. Wonderful. Okay, welcome back. So, you will now see the circle map that I have sent to you in front of you on your screen. Now, you will also notice that I've put an example in there. Now, the circle map is split into 3 sections. I have only filled out 1 section, which is on the top right. And actually, those of you who are very, very aware will notice that that's not actually for the production that we're studying. I'm not making it too easy for you. I'm giving you an example so that you can have a look at what the right answer might look like, how you might structure your answer, the kind of level of detail that you need in your answer. But I'm not doing it for things that I know to be true, because that would just make it far, far too easier for you. So there are 3 sections in the map. And actually, they are because you need to interpret, analyse and evaluate 3 different moments. So I'm going to go through one moment with you now, and I'm looking at the play Metamorphosis by Splendid. And in my first circle, now you will notice that actually the circle map is divided, but the first circle isn't, because that's my interpretation of the scene. It's my overview. And actually that's going to be the same for whatever happens. So if we take a look at the first circle, Mr. Samsa comes home to witness the destruction that Gregor has caused. Okay, Gregor is now roaming around the house. Gregor has escaped from his room while Mrs. Samsa and Greta are clearing his room. So that's just a real overview of the scene. So again, all you need to do really in this first circle is just tell me what is going on in Pip's monologue. Give me an overview. Give me what's led to that circumstance. It's almost like our first point in our paragraph. So then I'm going to move into the second circle, and that is a moment of specific reference within the scene. Now, again, you've got those moments, but we just need to make sure that we focus on one moment per section. So hopefully you can see the cursor here. So we've got one section here, and then I'm putting my other moment here, and then I'm putting my other moment in my final section. So I am now looking at this key moment. So I've described it here. Mr. Samsa enters the room. He is shocked to see what's happened. That's kind of my moment. I've got my broad overview of the scene in the first circle, and then I'm specifying, I'm really delving deep into that moment. And actually what I've done is I've used a couple of quotations to really, really be specific about the moment that I'm talking about. As I move into my first square, I'm now going to ask you to describe vocal and physical skills used at that moment, on that quote, in that specific section that you have narrowed down to. So, quote 1, I'd use a quiet volume of voice with a confused tone. Quote 1, he places his hands in front of him with his gestures towards the sky. Again, all I'm doing is describing. I don't need to analyse because that's coming in my second square. And then, as you can see, I've got my second quote here, and then my second analysis is he's going to be using a loud volume and angry tone. He begins to frantically pace around the room. So I'm really just describing how he is demonstrating my interpretation. So he's shocked to see what happens. He's starting to become angry and frustrated. So again, I've got my kind of interpretation here. This is my moment, my specific overview. These are the quotes that I'm using to support it. I've got my descriptions in my second box. And then in my third box, I'm starting to analyse. And it's really just talking about what my descriptions show about that character's feelings and emotions on that moment. So, if we take a look, if you follow the cursor again, his quiet volume of voice demonstrates a disbelief at the circumstances presented to the character. He is in shock that others are in Gregor's room. His disbelief cannot quite muster up the volume to confront the situation. So again, all I'm doing really is I've got my quiet volume of voice here, and I'm analysing it. I'm showing you what it shows about that character, and I'm linking it back to my interpretation of them, which is in the exam question. And again, if you see at the top of the screen, I've got the exam question there for you. So my interpretation of that character is that he is using these vocal and physical skills to demonstrate this. Notice that I've used the correct terminology as well. So again, I've got my facial expression here, and that's kind of described here, and my analysis is here. So his facial expression demonstrates the character's initial shock, but as his face gets brighter, it demonstrates the character's kind of increasing anger, which is really, really clear. So again, what I'm doing is I'm just talking about how my description demonstrates my interpretation of that character. For quote 2, I've put a little bit about volume again. So the increase in volume on the second quote demonstrates the character's increasing anger and frustrations as the scene progresses. Now, so I've got my kind of first element, and now actually, you will notice that this is really similar to the performance question. A lot of what I'm asking you to do is, as I say, overview of the scene, interpret the character here, use some quotes to pinpoint those moments, describe here, analyse here, but actually the final square is where we're kind of learning that new knowledge, and we're evaluating how successful the actor or the actors were in demonstrating the circumstances or feelings or the motivation. So my evaluation really has to include the word audience, okay? As an audience member, I felt this, okay? As an audience member, I thought this could have happened. So let's take a look at my answer. The actor's use of quiet volume was affecting in creating disbelief in the initial moments of the scene. So I'm giving my opinion there. That's really important for analysis, for evaluation. As the scene progressed, the volume increased. It was easy for the audience to understand the character's frustrations and anger towards the situation. So really, I'm saying this is what they did, and this is why it was really, really beneficial for the audience. It allowed me as an audience member, it was effective because it allowed me as an audience member to understand that. Now, in that evaluation box, you can say, I thought this happened really well, and this is why I thought. This is how it was impactful for me as an audience member. But also, you could say, actually, I felt that the character on this line didn't execute this as effectively as they could have done, and this might be what they could have done differently, and you can give that overview there. Okay, so now it is where the task comes in. What I would like you to do for the remainder of today's lesson is I would like you to fill your map. Now, I realise that I've sent you an electronic copy of the map. If you would like to take these in note form, but you follow the circle map instructions to create 3 structured note areas, so moment 1 over here, moment 2 over here, and moment 3 over here, but you want to do that in a list format, that's absolutely fine. I've got no problem with that. But actually, I want you now to begin by giving an overview of the scene. I want you then to start with your first moment, your interpretation in here. Second moment with the second thing I want you to do for the first moment is give that description, the analysis, and then the evaluation. I then want you to move on to your second moment. So what happens, some quotes that support it, describe, analyse, and evaluate. And the third moment within that 8-minute section, within Pip's monologue, is interpretation with quotes, description, analyse and evaluate. And when you have done that, I'd like you to upload your work to me on Microsoft Teams. Now, if you're doing this by hand, you're more than welcome to take a photograph of it. If you're doing it on the computer, as you can see, I've done mine on the computer. I'm very happy for you to do that. Then you can send me an electronic copy of it through Microsoft Teams, and should that fail to happen, by email. Okay, if you have any questions, you're more than welcome to email me. Thank you very much for your time. Have a wonderful rest of the day.